I was thinking about it before speaking to you, Neil. Has there been an upside? Does it allow you to try a few things out in the courts when there wasn't the same pressure of TV cameras around, just to see how maybe new procedures may have worked out in the courts? Did you take that chance?
Not really. I mean, to be honest, we've got a well thought out working way of doing things, and if we ever look at anything, they're always little final little tweaks and things like that. So I think one of the things we kind of looked at was, what the nutrient level needs to be like in the lead up to a championships and stuff, but there was discussion about whether we needed to sort of look at that and stuff. But at the end of the day, because we weren't drying down the courts ready for the championships and the covers weren't in and stuff like that, we couldn't get to the courts to the standard that they needed to be for championships play. And I mean things like hardness readings and getting them sort of as hard as they do, because the covers weren't in. So we couldn't really test anything out and get proper feedback and stuff like that from it. So the focus really was just trying to put on the best grass courts for the grass court season that we could, and just make sure that we were kind of fully committed to the renovation season. We had reduced seasonal staff in 2020, just because for travelling around for overseas people was reduced. So we ended up having less than we normally would have for the playing season. So it just meant that the staff that we did have had to be a little bit more focused because there was a little bit more work to do. But again, it kind of shone through from the team that nobody ever really complained. They just got on with it and sort of delivered it and just said, well, that's the job. Doesn't matter whether the world sees our courts or not. We need to know that they're the best in the world, even if anyone else can't see them. So that's the mentality of the team. And and like I say, we had a really good summer.
The courts, and I'm thinking about the main courts that maybe don't get the same play. Do they suffer from not having had 2 weeks of intense play on them? Do they soften up because of that?
Not really. I guess at the end of the playing season, whether one court got more play than the other, and it was quite ironic that we got to the end of the grass court season and most of the baselines were completely still intact, just because we had so many grass courts and we had the ability to sort of move them around so we could get a good wear. But again, once we start renovation, we're not repairing from the damage from that season. We're actually getting them ready for the following season. So whether they've had play on them or not, we would rip into them as much as we would do on any other season. So the renovation that we done back in August and September was exactly the same as previous years, and we've just stuck to those same principles going through autumn, winter this year. So once spring comes, whatever spring brings this year, will tell us what we can't do. So we're in a good place. We're kind of where we need to be in February, ready for sort of our March, early April sort of spring prep work that sort of really starts in earnest. We're kind of looking forward to a year with the championships.
Talking about the championships, obviously the vaccine's around, so it's a light at the end of the tunnel. What are your thoughts about this year's championships? Have you got any concerns, or is it all systems go?
No, we're all systems go. We're working to sort of the three scenarios of a full capacity normal championships, a reduced capacity, and a behind closed doors. And it's those three scenarios that each team within the club are working towards, just to sort of see what we need to do. And we're kind of working to that middle one, that it's going to be a reduced capacity. In the next 5 months, do I think that everybody will be vaccinated and the infection rates will be low enough that everybody won't have to social distance and we can do what we want? I doubt it. Do I think we'll be in lockdown and behind closed doors? I don't think that either. So I think it'll be somewhere in the middle. There'll be a reduced capacity. And I guess we'll be led by sort of government guidelines and DCMS and what those rules are for elite sports and who's allowed in, what sort of capacity crowds, and we'll be guided by them really. But again, we're 5 months away, so it's very hard to know to an exact what that reduced capacity would look like.
We are all working in situations that none of us have ever faced before, and who'd have thought it a year ago? It's incredible. But I think this year, 2021, if sport does go ahead at the level, all the events that are supposed to go ahead, Ryder Cups, Olympics, Euro football, it'll be an astonishing year if we get some sport on the go, and Wimbledon's a very key part of all that.
Yeah, and I'm really hopeful that all, globally, all of these sports will get back to some form of normality, at least being staged to a degree of what normality can be for each event. But I guess in our industry, in the sports turf world, if a tournament's on, whether it be tennis or the football or the Olympics or whatever it is, I guess our jobs are almost, what you've got to do, because whether you're, certainly for us, if we're playing behind a closed doors or to a reduced capacity or a full capacity, it doesn't really change for the ground staff. It's, you're playing on the same amount of courts. They need to be covered. They need to be prepped and cut and marked. So it doesn't really change for us. It's more for other people that it becomes a challenge for. So I think in our world, and again, you can sort of probably say the same for the Open this year, whether that's reduced capacity or not, what the green staff have to do there won't change. It will be as full on and as intense as it needs to be. So I think we're quite fortunate with that we almost know what we need to do from this early stage. And so we don't have to do too much scenario planning apart from the weather,
yeah,
which we get every year anyway. So
what have you learned about yourself over the last 12 months?
Oh dear.
A left field question there.
Yeah. Well, I think you probably appreciate how intense our jobs all are, because even though we've had a reduced year, I've certainly had more reflection time of sort of how we do things and the intensity and stuff. And but it kind of reinvigorates you more than anything. You realize how much you miss it. You always sort of think, oh, I wonder, when I retire or if I ever leave, will I miss working here? But you could never find out until you retire or you leave. Whereas I think we've had that fortunate scenario that in 2020, we know how we would feel if we didn't have the championships, because we didn't. So I can speak for myself to say that I would have missed it, and I did miss it greatly. Just the buzz about it, the pressure, the challenge of, working with Mother Nature and never quite knowing what those last few weeks when you're kind of doing the final prep work, how things are going to change and how flexible you have to be. So I've certainly missed that. I probably haven't missed the pressure of the media scrutiny and stuff like that. But again, that's sort of, that comes with the territory, and, certainly looking forward to it this year. But I think it's just one of those calm before the storm years that for the job that you're doing. I think, you kind of have to put it into context with what was going on in the world, and just realizing that, sport, as important it is to people, took a back seat, rightly so. And it's about making things safe, and people were adhering to rules, and we were doing the rules ourselves. But yeah, again, I think it's one of those ones where you're just chomping at the bit to get going again, really.